開始して大丈夫でしょうかね。Yeah. So now it's started. All right. Okay, so I think it's everything ready. All right. Welcome everyone to join this year's AIS Week 2026 roundtable session. I'm your host, session organizer, Toshiki Hirano. And we have this first session of this year titled Design Studios in the Age of AI, where we are going to discuss how we can utilize, explore the possibility of the generative AI in the framework of architecture education, specifically the design studio framework. And we have two guests, Daniel Koehler and Rasa Navasaityte, both from the University of Texas at Austin. Actually, I spent one semester last year at the University of Texas at Austin as a visiting faculty, and I was fortunate to spend some time with Daniel and Rasa, and what they were doing back there at the University of Texas at Austin was quite phenomenal. They have been trying to incorporate generative AI in different approaches in design studios and also design seminars. And I thought like it will be like really fascinating, wonderful to introduce what they are doing to a Japanese audience. So that's why I have both of them today. So today, I want to ask both of you to give short presentations. And then after that, we can move into discussion. Unfortunately, this is a format of broadcasting, so less interactive with the audience. So it's going to be discussion between us. Wish we could take some questions and comments from the audience, but maybe that will if I well for the audience if you want to ask any questions or post any comments, please, post those questions and comments on Twitter, or you can just directly email me so that I can share your questions and comments with them. But without further ado, let's move on to presentation. So Daniel, Rasa, who wants to go first?
Yes, I will go first.
Okay, Rasa. Okay, please. So now it seems I will switch off my microphone.
Yes. Thank you, Hirano Toshiki, for invitation. We are very excited to be part of this event. Today, I want to share how circular design reshapes architectural pedagogy. As we can see on the left side, architecture is understood as a static artifact very often, and architecture as a metabolic system is questionable, where water, energy, life flows through space. So the question becomes not what does it look like, but how does it breathe, feed, and regenerate? In the framework, at the center is ecological void, where human and non-human systems meet. Around it, energy, water, food, waste, community, all interacted in endless cycles simultaneously. And food waste becomes energy, and energy grows food. This isn't theory, it becomes spatial logic. And yes, AI helped us visualize these relationships through iterative prompting. So as you can see, multiple dualities are envisioned here via various advanced design studios. So where aeroponic airpod represents localized flower markets in medicine, and a background like cow care and daycare as a hybrid synthesis, or energy production becomes a lifestyle where fish growth is a center of sports and relationships with water between human and non-human species, where youth center is vertical farming is a climbing center at the same time. During a research, I discovered 4 methodologies how to work with AI in order to express the circular design strategies. These methodologies are not linear. They can be endlessly recombined and organized differently. So it offers endless variations for educational purposes as well. I will go through those 4 step by step. So in the first, as you can see, topological variation allows to take existing types of buildings known through history and rethink them through an ecological perspective, for example, as building, water, and architecture would be understood in relationship. Second, dimensional translation, where from historical abstraction to ecological form, where two-dimensional background can be synthesized here, where art to architecture relationship is explored as innovation. So looking through ecological perspective on the left side is Anna Albert's weaving pattern, which is translated to 2D, from 2D to 3D to 4D in material cycle and reactivation strategy for the neighborhood. The third is like synthetic multiplicity, where we can extract knowledge and imagine some scenarios which we cannot imagine. We can prompt them, actually mix them. Mixing these realities, how humanized technology version could look like, where we actually embed eco-technology into programs. Or how atmospheric and scientific view through the plant growth or related to water cycle actually can be projected through that field of a landscape into the human programs, how that would look like. The fourth is designing with interdisciplinary knowledge. What this part allows us to look at the quantities, ask questions, and reevaluate a certain research methodologies, and at the same time draw like a DNR cycles representing these complexities. So here, what architect cannot as one person, and as well in teaching methodology, you can't immediately represent interdisciplinary perspective, but with artificial intelligence, we can do this. I will share 3 studios, 3 design studios from University of Texas. The first one, Advanced Design Studio, where students in alpine context, they were rethinking hydrological systems of the water, which a context of Innsbruck is based on hydraulic systems, and knowing by melting glacier future perspectives, we were questioning how that could be as a closed cycle, technological cycle of the water could be imagined as an urban center where fish produce water sports, and production becomes like a new communal landscape where programmatic and communal cycles are envisioned with the material of perceiving how how navigating prompting to knowledge system is also becoming like creative cycle. And as well, tectonical experiment, which also allows us to revisit via art to architecture representation to explore that complex systems. And as well, as you can see on the left side, rethinking typologies such as growth, food production, housing is incorporated at once. As well on the left side, the information was drawn in an architectural drawing as a water cycle as a dam system for Texas, for City Austin. On the left side, it's reimagined as a park system where fish and people dwell, where the river intake is happening, where the vertical farming is placed, and the indoor urban spaces are proposed. Looking at the neighborhood resilience and understanding a negative effect and reversing these as opportunities where automation of robotic systems are imagined as a structure, which can repurpose this urban food desert area into the opportunity to strengthen local businesses. And as is from one side, by prompting, you get distribution of technologies you would need to achieve that. From another side, using the art examples where intuitively architecture students associate the ideas within the design, they kind of merge these realities and see them applicable differently, where it's more close to the concepts and ideas. So here, robotics as a structure become a skeleton for the community and as a thermal effect at the same time. These methodologies was applied as well in a different background where I shared them with Taubman College. Katie Velikov invited to collaborate to her RD Logic thesis workshop. And I shared these methodologies in another background, such as more extreme climate conditions in desert resilience strategies. Students looked at the key moments of their research, and via these four methodologies, they were expressing and communicating their ideas with artificial intelligence via variety of drawings. As a last studio, I'm sharing 4 weeks seminar related to visual representation. And the goal of the seminar is to show and give time for students to understand that they are the authors of AI if they understand the prompting as a new skill, if they understand creative directions, and they open themselves into that creative direction. So this exercise asks to pick up the artwork, an inspiring element you maybe want to explore with, and learning prompting engineering within that, and looking how two-dimensional art can be three-dimensional exploration from wanted scale. Is this a city scale? Is this a landscape or interior or architecture scale? What I would like maybe to summarize the work that I think that the design studios in the age of AI can do 3 things through my perspective. 1, frame ecological cycles as design drivers and use AI to expand speculative imaginations, making visible the relationships between human and ecological systems. And the third, that ground speculations with quantity realities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rasa. It's super wonderful, interesting. Okay, so shall we move on to Daniel's presentation?
Yeah, I can
Yes.
also directly continue. Yes, good idea.
Yes, yes.
Let me set up my PowerPoint right a moment. At the moment. Yeah. I think you should see the full screen now. Does it work? Yeah, no?
Yes, yeah, it perfectly works.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Thanks to Shiki also from my side for the invitation. The first few slides are bits to introduce my own research. So I'm working with large-scale models, and a bit like testing those in my research and exploring them in the like what kind of, especially in terms of typological aspects. So how are building features represented? So one first thesis is that I don't think that we anyhow can or should anymore differentiate between generated or like then synthetic content or like real analog or physical content. It's first is well, it's mostly anyhow not anymore differentiable, but I think anyhow like that our whole perception of what actually means an image as authenticity is again changing. Same as it was changing between how we understood the authenticity or the content of knowledge in a painting and how it changed with photography and again, maybe like with social media content. So I think now when you can, in a way, like generate content that in a way aligns with certain kind of features or represents reality, but in a way like slightly different. I think we go back something more on kind of like how you would understand representation as maybe it was with painting. So I think an important, or like I'm writing this on those in my recent book. It just came out in last fall. And of course, like I'm like now how I'm beginning to teach this. The first how I introduce this is actually over kind of like more speculative exploration. So I'm using, or like for me, like buildings made out of trees, made as forests. First, I think I would wish we could build buildings like forests. This is my personal kind of like intention or long-term intention, let's say. But I think more interesting is in such kind of generated content that, I mean, we don't have those buildings in reality. So what shifting is, or what for me, like these kind of imagery is kind of like benchmark, kind of testing large-scale models in to what extent they're capable to generate actually new content, like content that was not yet existent. And I think this is like a so we start usually with students like to explore like really niche, or really like the kind of like a bit poking in the kind of like maybe unseen or unfamiliar, only as a kind of departure where I want to make, or like make to learn, or like talk about the difference in perception of technology, or with digital technology that shifted now with generative AI and the underlying large-scale models, and everything now what continues with agentic AI, physics AI, and so on. I think there's a fundamental rift, and that before, like with a digital technology, you would generate content based on rules, based on preconceptions of certain spatial paradigms. But now those models, based on their kind of like scale on data learned on, but more so that they actually learned in language. So large language models. That means now when I have learned the language, I can speak, once I have learned the language, like any kind of sentence, any kind of poem with that language. So, and there's like the major shift that was like, or the I think also the cultural rupture, which happens with the large scale models and with generative AI then, and the image generators, which are basically the aesthetic surface of those kind of change that we now. What does it mean when technology, when technical device can generalize? It means it can. I mean, it's much more like a companion. It's much more as an individual, as someone who can think critical or can think independent, because you can generalize, so you can come up with your own thoughts. Of course, like, no, these models generate like new content, and the trick by this is that they are represent or learn patterns in a hyperdimensional space with that. So okay, like, I mean, like, you don't know in sculpture by Mondrian or by Jackson Pollock, but you see already very nicely in, or minimum for the Pollock, how the model begins already like literally as a draftsperson projected, no, from like, really it's a projective cast basically, these sculpture. So it knows how, in a way, in different, let's say, perspectives, or like how you would hyperdimensional space and in different ways describe. So it knows how to look already or represent something in multiple or like plethora of different ways, and that allows already like to recombine basically any content from that. I think there's like an enormous capacity in that. We need as architects, or we need to learn or understand, I think, how those kind of geometries actually superpose, or how it's actually composed in itself, how those models do that actually. But I think also that we need to learn as architects to access this, how actually that it's now superposed in itself. And the sounds all like very abstract and complex, but in reality, it's basically, it comes down to prompting. It comes down in like poking the model, just raising or asking question, or knowing in which direction actually you want or should look. So it needs actually an architectural expertise first to do so. So because these models learn unsupervised, like there's no way to know in advance like where actually kind of the innovation, the new knowledge is lying. That the only way to access it is actually through exploration, through speculation, and actually, yeah, through kind of design research. In just here in diagram, because a model is at the end like a mathematical structure, you can, through this kind of vector space, doesn't matter how many dimensions it has, you can, with very simple plus minus operations, basically navigate through that. But when you navigate now with features, or with types, with spaces, you need a very good architectural expertise to do so. Now you need that kind of like your craft, your knowledge, that you can actually very precise, really like trace these kind of features that the handless models begin to ask, to raise actually through prompting those questions, and begin then to combine them. So as for example, like a kind of tutorial where I start with students, but I ask them now to do a prompt work here, like I'm going from left side, I'm going from a roof to a corridor. On the other side, I go from a corridor in the roof space. So, and you see already capacity of a model. First, I'm taking now context. I'm taking now here, this is Berlin as a city. I'm also asking for not only existing building, for recycling of materials, reuse, and all those kind of like entanglement of different contexts. See also how sublime you can navigate now, in with what kind of fine granularity you can full such concepts, which seem at first like so super abstract as words, or how we use like to work with types in the classical space, and how like hyper realistic this becomes. So I'm literally taking this, so we work now with this on our videos with undergraduate students, which we do, where I'm asking them basically to design from inside out like a building. They like a classical Corbusier parcours. You begin to move through a building, and by these like all that kind of context begins to unfold around that building. So if you move forward in these explorations, they become more precise. You go more interior. They become like the unfolding of a program, of kind of idea of cohabitation, that then like with 2D to 3D, you begin to explore this as a model, explore this like putting this into section, into kind of like draft with plans, and then a very well staged, of course, like then the interior, and is situated in a specific site and so on. So these projects, like although they begin like really like generated, they go the full scope. Anyway, I'm just taking now like with like one student show like that kind of a project in the full. Like one thing, first detail to notice, like any drawing you see here is actually generated. You see, like there's a completely like there's no difference anymore if you draw it in cut, a sketch, and or with any media. With generative AI models, you can have the same resolution. And that's, of course, gives you also a great flexibility. But less like the bandwidth of a project, I feel what I appreciate more of that is the kind of depth. So for me, for example, that project was like that the student now actually doesn't talk about the void and the mass, or like kind of like geometrical placements, but about the computation with thermal differences, how thermal differences create now a ventilation pattern, which allows now a kind of natural cooling, but also how the building now is made out of reclaimed, recycled kind of building parts and so on. So the kind of depth and richness of what a project actually can be is so much now elevated in its kind of like complexity and richness, what we actually begin to think with students in the studio. And it's not me like really coming up with these topics like I show you this kind of like, hey, let's explore like interior space, and it's actually the students themselves that because you so quickly generate this complexity, dive actually in this like extra layers of a space. And of course, because like you have instilled the time to settle this also and ground this with full model and all those kind of plans. It comes, of course, like there's now really like behind the scenes. It comes with a few questions and challenges in teaching. So on the left side, you see like, I mean, I can very quickly generate any content. So of course, then very quickly you have literally thousands of images. And now, of course, the question is, how do I actually navigate through those? How do I actually begin to learn what is better? What is, or does something like better exist in a creative space? How do I begin to learn to go through those kind of like plethora of images? The only response what I have now is that we literally begin to discuss this over now intuitive like first like evaluations. Hey, what the kind of like stickers, but like in open discussion now, what actually you appreciate, how you begin actually to learn in appreciation in this kind of curation of imagery and concepts and so on. I think that this is a very individual process. I think that every student or everyone has to learn this in very individual ways, because that's where now in a way like the main attention of creativity actually sits. On the right side, you see also like I did this just in a desk grid, just like with a cell phone. How a student actually like discusses, not like now the project that you review. And you see like it's from a rendering to precise cut drawing, a sketch, a model, like it's the media doesn't matter anymore. So because you so quickly can augment today's sketch, because so quickly you can also 3D print, make a hand or whatever, like it's very natural you begin to mix everything. And this I think is like very new in we made always this difference between you have the hand studio or you have the computational studio. Yeah, but I think that those times are over. I think that very natural we now like basically use every media just for really building up a rich, interesting, and complex thought and design construct. I see that as soon as I naturally move into that, that actually you get freed in a way from the need to like earlier on learning coding, learning Grasshopper and more abstract, which took so much energy. So now it's a quite wide exploration. So I think no, like it's we made like in earlier times we made always a difference analog to some kind of virtual kind of realm and digital. And I want to question this a lot. Like I think architecture is always like between some like ideological or like virtual abstract space and really like matter. And I think that generative AI gives a new kind of layer on that, kind of like basically a very classic way of craftsmanship. So that's of course AI, but when I project like how for me ideal studio looks like, then there is no difference between the drawing and craft, between like analog digital. But more so, there's no difference between the making and the presentation of that space. I think we have the capacity now also like much more going out and much more going in dialogue also of working with an audience and representation. And maybe I stop here. It's maybe good end. Okay.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's super fascinating, and also the question you posed later in the presentation about how you can navigate yourself among the excess amount of generated information or materials. That's something like super interesting, and I think it's pretty important. But before going into that, I think like we should begin with some like basic questions and some like information for the audience too, because because most of there's the big difference in terms of the education system, architecture education system between Japan and the States. And in your case, since like your school has a B-Arc program, that's like significantly different from the architecture education system here in Japan. So it's a 5-year undergraduate program, right? Professional degree program. And what you showed today are mostly from B-Arc students, right?
Yeah.
Some are from postgraduate, meaning master's program students, but mostly from third, fourth, and fifth year of the B-Arc, I would say.
Yeah, my studio like that was purely like third year
Third
students.
year, right?
And I think Rasa, you had the visual
Mixture.
communication, I think is second year, no? What?
Yeah, the visual
3.
representation seminar,
That's
Yes.
second.
second year.
And then advanced studio, no?
Advanced studio, we have mixture, Toshiki, from both.
Fifth year, no?
Fifth year students.
Right.
So they are in a mixture.
And then master.
Right. And yeah, well, so that's one of the interesting place to start. So when Midjourney and other generative AI models were introduced, which was, I think, 4 years ago, something like that. At least, I mean, here in Tokyo, professors, I mean, we were freaked out because we saw like, students are going to like generate everything, like renderings and term papers and drawings and everything. But as far as I see, still it seems that students here in Japan are quite conservative. I don't really see like students who are doing like all kinds of like design out of generative AI. Of course, I mean there are some, quite handful of students nationwide. So I think like there's still strong kind of resistance against utilizing AI in the design processes or in the design studios. And I wonder, like, well, at least I mean at the UT Austin, how like students react, response to like your briefs or I mean framework where you ask students to like actively investigate into the AI.
You want to start or I should?
I think it's a very good question. I will start and then you can also add. I think first for someone, when I teach studios, we mentioned 4 years or like there is a time of period where when AI came and I saw it first time, because I'm a generation which was not taught by AI, but I'm teaching AI. So I'm kind of bridging two fields and looking and testing myself. And I was so excited. I don't know, my opinion was, wow, I can prompt what I want. I can do things I never thought before. Can I combine this? Can I combine that? Is this possible to show a version I would never think about? So I was crazy for that. Not necessarily I navigated immediately, but I was like, this is a new tool. It's a very open system. But if we see closed system, I just want to start with AI and say, I want this, and it doesn't make me that. That conversation is about, of course, often happens. And then in this conversation, I think it's important to show and share methodologies and explain if you have experience expressing that tool, if you take time, you gain new experience as we can draw by hand. Or as you were starting 3D modeling, and more you would 3D model, you become expert in 3D modeling, where the other person is much better in drawing, he's very expert in hand drawing. Now it's just prompting, let me say one dimension, but it could be like bridging a variety of AIs is like collaborative matter. And I understand like that transition, that student who is not sure, did that student gain enough skills and now he's just getting an answer, like how that barrier of skills and learning and experimenting with is working. So to me, it's very much important to show that you are the author, and when you are the author, and how simply and exploratively and playfully, you can explore research with envisioning these visions, less than spending a lot of time on one design perspective. And maybe we tested it's not the best. Now we can really shift that time and explore interdisciplinary questions within maybe a few weeks. And to show that and share with students that in my times was impossible. So I'm kind of trying to engage students and of course giving knowledge and giving time to perceive the new skills.
I mean, how AI now works mostly over chatbots, so it's a dialogue. And the result of that is that it's basically mirroring your input. A lot of so now the challenge and difficulty is now, if you know the question to ask, like your result will not be really it might go in a not really fruitful direction. This is see often in when you just I mean, it seems at first very simple, you offer access to say, hey, okay, here's Midjourney, and log in, banana, whatever you take now today, but then actually the result can be very flat, can be very like a digital vernacular basically, but it has to do with that. I mean, you need time at first to acquire expertise for what questions actually to ask. So most but it's similar when you begin or before maybe you learned Grasshopper and you get then smaller windows, bigger windows, or some the first kind of experience of a certain construct when you begin or even when you begin to sketch. Those first results can be very frustrating. They're for sure, they're not good looking, they're not inspiring, and you need further to continue. But now the difficulty is also that I mean, because you get directly the full style, you get the full result back, or full photo of a suggested building. So then it's suggesting you already completeness, which it doesn't has actually, no? Which was easy to understand in learning process when I'm learning to sketch or learning to draw, no? Because, or also with a digital script learning, it's clear that also that kind of script, whatever spiral, what you now coded, is only an example. So I think that from that, that's hard to go over this barrier, or because you have very quickly you have success, but it takes very long, actually to incrementally to grow up. So that's I think is psychological, something what happens. On the other hand, of course, there's a lot of anxiety, which I fully understand. By myself, I think that this already now, the complexity, richness in writing, in imagery, in any kind of media, exceeds already my intellect. I know that already, that what we have today at capacity, when you use it in that what you can, it's already beyond your capacity. So, and this of course, we need new relationship to technology in itself. So to also overcome a certain just something like anxiety for that.
I see. Well, did you have any students who complained that they can just draw any diagrams or drawings by hand, so that they don't really need to use any Midjourney or AI, and that's more efficient and creative way of working.
The analog way of
Yeah, in your studios.
yeah.
Are-
I mean, I don't think there's really a difference anymore in the kind of
True.
speed or constructing a certain concept. So that means also like, I mean, before was clear, like a sketch is really like a sketch. And then you need to draw it out in a way. And today there's no difference anymore. Like it's even I have the full result first, then I need a sketch from that or something. This can be confusing. That can also be that like it's of course much more straightforward, or if you go that kind of like not the classical way, they would say I have from a hand sketch to then some construction drawings at the end. And yeah, it's I think it changes the way of working because it's kind of multi-dimensionality. It means like I can have different entry points now. And that's also maybe like kind of anxiety is the wrong word, but it can be very confusing because I can now with any media or with many more points I can start actually to design. Maybe a classical would maybe like a sketchhand model or like a sketch you would start. And now it can be already a photograph of that kind of generated building or the plan or whatever kind of artifact, or even it's a code snippet. Like it goes in any direction now. And that can be, yeah, of course, this can be very confusing.
Yeah, what about you, Rasa? Did you have any students like who had trouble like working with AI instead of working analog?
I think what I noticed by students, first, I think offering flexibility, like let me say what I love about AI and student reflection to it, that the way I teach, I have flexibility, meaning to open yourself differently. So it's not like, let me say I teach real-time simulation, and there is a certain game agent environment. There is one way to show things. So you're kind of following tutorials step by step, and then you get amazing work. It looks stylistically similar, a lot of variants. But now in AI, it's open field. So if I would instruct the way the work that you have to fit exactly in that framework, and maybe it's one way. But I think openly giving a student a feeling that he can do different, he can express himself differently. For example, what I felt, I have never had that situation you asked me, but I had different experience. Because in my advanced design studio, sometimes come students, they're a bit older from different school, but they don't have enough long studied skills for design. They studied something else and they became now architecture students. They are smart people. They have really good background from other fields. And like, wow, you have some knowledge into something else. And they are able to open themselves, let me say, through research in a very original direction. So or other student is very talented in visuals. Yes, he is, let me say, I'm just guessing, student A is, and he did not knew even that, and makes a pinup. Everybody, wow, what's going on? It's so interesting. So I think opening or being able to show variety of talents, opening in more like variety of perspectives, also gives the skill to student to discover himself differently. And I think that is important. And what happened in my last advanced design studio in autumn, I did not know that one student doesn't have skill to model like in Rhino freely, where other colleagues, friends, study friends are very good in that. And that student is only Revit expert in practice. And I did not know about it because with AI, this person, so a student didn't have enough skills to model anything, so kept with AI so strong that in the final presentation, people said, this is the best AI example I have ever seen. Got so much compliments because he couldn't express himself in a different program. And I did not know that. So that was like, wow, like you are not good in three-dimensional modeling where fragments of assignments allows you to switch medium and founded moments are here. So maybe you want to physical model produce in different way or opposite. That student kept on going. And I was feeling through the intelligence of a strong background of interest, student was keeping more skills with that platform, didn't have that choice, and made really great progress. First time ever using AI. And I was like, everybody was pumped. I want to look at these drawings so long. I'm enjoying watching your work. And of course, allowing students also to reflect their work, discuss, and give them, maybe support them in understanding that that's your work. You gain a lot of skills. You put your own research. You having very unique idea. No one has else this idea as you, and you are unique. I think that's what open system or allowing us not to stick to the format, but like to open variety of voices, variety of talents. If the person is mathematically very strong, should go for computational strategy with AI and much more like programming skills, explore even stronger. If you're interested in ecological perspective via thermal effects, so and I think teaching is different. We are not teaching one very narrow problem, let me say. We are teaching perspectives and openings through the systems. Maybe that's my passion in this direction.
Yeah, great. So it's really about like kind of breaking the boundary between working in different modes, and really about kind of freely employing interdisciplinary knowledges. That's something like AI like empowered us in terms of the design processes. And well, like looking at both of your presentations, what I found it quite interesting is that the importance of precedents. So in Rasa's case, in your studio or in your visual representation seminar, there's a point like where students are expected to bring some artwork, paintings or sculptures, and try to like, and then like students are expected to like translate them into something three-dimensional or something architectural, urban. And I think like Daniel too. I think like in your case, like this idea of from generating to generalizing, you always need to have some like basic knowledge, or well, again, like in other words, precedents, in order to create like a new content, from the AI or some like unrestricted. I can't really remember the word. Non-biased like AI. Right. So I wonder. So sometimes, oftentimes when we talk about employing new technologies in architecture, let's say like what I have in mind is the Gropius. When he came into Harvard, he said like, we no longer need those like old books in the library, right? So oftentimes like when we deal with new technologies, we often think that precedents, like, materials, artifacts from history are no longer no longer valid or no longer like useful. But having like a look at like, both of your studios, it seems like the importance of precedent is coming back, and not in a way when we see postmodernism utilizing historical languages but in other kind of ways. So if you could speak a bit about the importance or how we deal with precedents and how we teach students the importance of the precedents.
You want to start or should I start?
You can start.
Excellent. So I mean, like precedent, of course, it could also replace it with data itself. So like, but look, when those models are modeled to an idea of a perception of the brain, I mean neural networks, so they're by far more human than already humans. I think this is a very different technology in itself, that because it's much more works like you. I mean, when this kind of like reassembling in a hyperdimensional realm, you can also simply say it's like working with analogies. Is feel like you work literally like with a like idea of an image, you reassemble this, and like it's very similar than very classical way of creativity, imagination, or like imagination is another word away, it carries that you need a certain reference. It's important to make the difference to copy here, because these models, I mean, they in itself like such a high abstraction, or like, I mean, the compression is by factor of 1,000 or so in terms of between data and so on. So it's technically not a copy, but I think also when you see like when you, of course, you can always like prompt or like that it's exactly like a copy. This capacity I have too, and this is I mean, always has been bad, but if I'm using it in a new way, then of course, like already the recombination, the kind of like taking from different, like asking for a different perspective on an object, a space, whatever it is, in a perspective that you can't have, because it's not your brain. It's like first is a different is anyhow different medium. It's different kind of brain, you could say. It's very helpful, or can be very enriching then, no? Having those different perspectives. And of course, like I want very much to learn why actually those models have those capacity like to be so flexible. Imagine we could have such spaces that are so flexible instead of like these kind of richness. Now that you can basically they have capacity, you always get a response from model. I want such spaces, no? Like that's much more I mean, not very valuable, sustainable, I don't know, like, and so on, so further. So I'm looking for that. And it needs kind of from there the reference, like more as a maybe the start of imagination or from analogy, like that. Yeah.
Yes, it's a good
Rasa,
question. I think there are a variety of reasons of that. Let me say, one, if I'm interested in my personal style, for example, I'm a creator, so I'm not teaching that, I want to add on, but I'm interested in my own personal style. Let me say, this would be one direction of constructing specific architecture which looks like this style, or I'm designing new style. That's maybe a goal. So then I want originality, I want to characterize or something like that. If I take an object, I can enforce, of course, change, scale, and so on. Now, what is very much what I learned from history, let me say still, my generation, or me, not generation, like me, I'm a bit inhuman-wise looking at AI, less than I would be machine. Machine with machine learns something else or has their own language. My language is humanized. I was myself interested in applied art university. I studied at Young Avante. I was inspired by Zaha Hadid looking at Malevich, like it's an abstract art, and then speaking about when she struggled as a student to make ideas, actually, where are they coming from? She looked into arts, and that allowed her to express and rethink architecture typology. I was so impressed by that knowledge, but still all of us in art universities, like let me say me, in my background, I'm from Lithuania, we can study in two schools, we can study architecture. The one you can choose as a student, go to applied art university, or you can go to technical university. And these are slightly different education. So my background, where I'm coming from, is taught by visual arts to architecture, that relationship. So from one way, I see an opportunity in this course, which I teach student prompting, like when to do abstract ideas or to look at the work, as Daniel mentions, not to copy, but inspiration is interesting to you. Can be photography, can be a fragment out of the painting. It could be a sculpture, three-dimensional object that inspires you. You don't know yet what exactly, but you have interest in it to look at. So you observe the world and you extract from it. Now, if we straightforward in a short term learning prompting, we want to translate it, transform that reference, not to repeat that reference, like, and to show that difference. So you are owning, you are composing, and how to access the composition via prompting. We are humans, we are drawing or painting, making physical models, but now here is a language. So we are discussing a lot and looking at that reference is a kind of DNA, is less than exact, like translation, and you can try to do that reference. You're kind of cycling with that reference and discussing your interest and your ideas within it. So it's kind of communication with that reference. And I think something in our background, I don't think students are used to that, where I grew up in a certain environment like that. So to them is very new, this perspective. How can you do this? From another point, when we look to ecology, it's such a field where you have one little problem and solution, and if you don't solve the problem, you cannot embrace interdisciplinary world. But I think via creativity, we can engage more creative mind, rethink that ecology. And I think here, allowing ecological field to be with this mixture of references, maybe it's an important part. And yes, maybe that's enough. Yes.
But yeah, I think it's a really interesting answer, comment. Well, in my experiments, I feel that the students who have strong or like specific visual references or precedent, always like create like really interesting things out of AI, rather than someone like who tries to like come up everything out of their mind with words, with language. So I think like that really touches on the Daniel's questions about like how to like evaluate, how to navigate within this excess amount of generated information. But we need to wrap up. Oh my God, like it's so fast. The time flies, 60 minutes. But and I wish I could like go deeper into the process in each studio, but which we couldn't. But is there any like where website or anywhere like people can see outcomes or some like briefs from your studios and seminars?
That's a good question. We don't publish anymore really like teaching work.
Mhm. I
So
see.
not really. Actually, not really, not yet. So let's say.
Yeah. I think like it will be like really interesting to like if you could
Yeah.
share those like the studio briefs and outcomes
Yeah.
so that people can view freely. But anyways,
Yeah.
we need to wrap up. But thank you so much, Daniel and Rasa, for sitting with me, and it was such a wonderful discussion. And thank you for staying up so late. Must be like a 9 p.m.
Just
in the
9, yeah.
evening in Austin. Time to
Thank you
go
so
back
much
home.
for the invitation, for having us and inviting. Yeah.
Thank you. And yeah, hopefully like next time we will see in person
Oh,
in the future session of the AIS week.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Enjoy your
so
week.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Best of luck.
And thank you for the audience who watched the session. This is the end of the first session of this AIS Week 2026. And the next session, session 2 by Eriko Kitamoto, is starting from 1:50 later this afternoon. And it's on the different YouTube link. So perhaps you may want to refer to the roundtable session website. But in any case, so that's the end of the session. Thank you,
Thank
and
you.
You.
have a good
Goodbye.
night.
Bye. Bye.
Right.